There's a coalition of some 20 red state attorneys generals that have accused the Treasury Department of mischaracterizing state laws that are designed to prevent financial institutions from discrimination in banking, calling these laws a threat to national security. According to these AGs, the Treasury Department is pursuing political ends rather than fulfilling its responsibility to consumers by opposing state laws to prevent what's known as debanking. You've probably heard of that terminology by now, but joining me now to discuss this is Ryan Bangert. He's the Senior Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and Special Counsel to the President at Alliance Defending Freedom. Ryan, welcome to the program. Glad to have you joining us.
Jody, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
All right, so we have talked a good bit in the past here on Washington Watch about debanking. But walk us through what is typically involved in this. What does this really look like?
Jody, a great example is our client in Tennessee, Indigenous Advanced Ministries, a ministry that serves orphans and widows in the nation of Uganda in Africa. And the proprietor of that organization learned as he was about to depart for a trip to Africa to serve these needy people that his Bank of America account had been suspended. He was no longer able to access any of his funds to serve the needs of his constituents. He was never given a reason why. It was done really overnight for no apparent reason at all. And he lost access to his funds at a critical moment when he desperately needed them. And so frequently these debanking instances look just like that. They're done with no apparent reason, and they're done to groups like missions organizations or Sam Brownback's organization, National Committee for Religious Freedom.
Yeah, it's stunning when you look at all this, and quite frankly, right? It may be news, it may be brand new information to many of our viewers and listeners right now that officials from the Treasury Department are opposing state efforts to stop this. So what happened? Why is the Treasury Department on the wrong side of this issue?
It's really stunning that the Treasury Department would argue that simply preventing discrimination by banks on the basis of religion or political viewpoint somehow constitutes a threat to national security. Laws like the ones that were passed in Florida just this past term or in Tennessee do just that. They simply prevent banks from withdrawing services for reasons that aren't quantifiable, that don't relate to objective risks, or that relate to someone's religious or political viewpoints. And the Treasury Department sent a letter just last month in July saying that somehow these state laws threaten national security by preventing banks from taking into account such things as a customer's terrorist affiliation. Now, I guarantee you can read these laws, and nowhere in the laws is there a prohibition or a bar on banks taking into consideration the terrorist affiliation of a customer. That's simply not what they do.
Well, it's maddening, it's frustrating. What you're really saying is what's going on here is that people are being punished. People are being denied some basic financial services based upon their religious beliefs and or their political beliefs, not because they're terrorists, for crying out loud, but because of what they believe. Is that kind of a summary of what's going on here?
Jody, a lot of this relates back to the absorption of something called ESG, and I'm sure your viewers have heard that acronym several times, Environmental, Social, and Governance Standards. And these are simply standards that a number of businesses, including banks, have adopted over the past few years to guide their conduct. And what was found back in the Trump administration, right before the election, was that a number of banks had been denying services to companies because they manufactured guns, because they were involved in the fossil fuel industry, and increasingly we're finding banks denying services to individuals or organizations because of their religious affiliation. And this is very much in keeping with the push for ESG standards. This is a politicization of the banking industry, just like we've seen the politicization of a number of different sectors of the economy. It has nothing to do with risk. It has nothing to do with the actual conduct of the business of banking, and everything to do with driving a political agenda that is opposed to things like I said, fossil fuels, gun manufacturing, gun ownership, or increasingly religious belief.
Yeah, it's their attempt to try to force social policies on those. And you say the politicizing all of this, but it's really weaponizing the government and the banking industry to come after individuals. What is the Treasury Department afraid of with these groups?
Now, I think the Treasury Department here is likely reacting to political pressure to keep advancing this ESG agenda. And we've seen it over and over again throughout the economy. In fact, if you look at the report that was issued by the House Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Government just this past spring, the report detailed a number of instances by the Treasury Department and various sub-agencies within the department to surveil Americans simply because they did such innocent things like shopping at sporting goods stores for hunting rifles. And so it's really incredible the amount of surveillance that's happening right now of ordinary Americans who are simply going about their business. They're being surveilled by these financial institutions. And the concern that we have, quite frankly, is that the left is going to try to use some of these businesses to, like you said, drive policy, drive social policy, much like we see the Chinese Communist Party doing in China with social credit scores. Now, obviously, that's a leap from where we are today, but we certainly don't want to see things head in that direction.
Absolutely. Ryan Bangert from Alliance Defending Freedom, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. We greatly appreciate it.